Oculus is now the top-ranked app in the U.S. App Store, and this is giving one Wall Street analyst conviction that VR usage, that would be virtual reality, is more mainstream than previously thought. We want to welcome into the stream now Brent Thill. He is a Jefferies equity research analyst. And Brent, great to be with you here. Just give us the overview, because this kind of snuck up on me at least. Suddenly I'm reading headlines about Apple going toe-to-toe with Meta over hiring in California and a bunch of other headlines there.
Yeah, I think the Oculus definitely surprised a lot of people. I mean, I bought it for my kids over the holidays, and I bought one, and my mistake is I should have bought three because everyone in the family was fighting for it. So I think, when you think about the advancements they made in the technology, it's just more realistic. It's easier to use. There's more games. I was being constantly asked over the holidays to download more games. So the content flow through is high, and these are, can be $20 to $30 incremental purchases. So you have the device and the content. Now, this is a rounding error for Facebook in the short term, but we think it does signify a couple of things. One, the march towards the Metaverse, which is this next generation of experience. And then two, I think that they're showing that they can diversify, right? And again, it's a rounding error to the financials because it was largely an ad-driven company, but they are showing signs that they can expand. I guess the third point would be just going towards the younger audience, right? And that's something they've really struggled with, is they've lost that younger audience to Snap and they've lost it to TikTok. And so I think, they have a seat at the table here. There's incredible opportunity. I think when you think about what Oculus can do going forward for many parts of our lives, it's not just only, gaming, right? I think about, ongoing training. If you're a pilot, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you can go in and you can go through different experiences and simulations that they could present to you. There's a lot of different use cases that could be really interesting down the road if you let your imagination run wild. And again, they're not going to be the only one going after this, right? Microsoft wants to go after it. Apple will go after it. So far so good. And again, I think the big mistake was not buying more of these devices for the family.
Well, it's not too late. I'm sure there are some birthdays coming up, other holidays that you can buy these things for, Brent. You make a good point, which is that Facebook has become much less relevant with younger people in recent years. Now, I'm sure your kids know who makes the thing because they're related to you and you cover all this stuff for a living. But I wonder, will the Oculus relevance, I can't speak today, to the next generation, will that translate to benefits in the Meta ecosystem more broadly?
I mean, I think the jury's still out, right? I mean, I think there's always been this concept of, hey, you get a new device, and then, do you hang on to it, or does it just, collect dust on your shelf? And I think the last, Oculus experience, at least, was a little less compelling. That the content's getting better, it's more realistic. Ultimately, I think the multiplayer opportunity too, when you bring multiple devices in, is getting better. So I think it's still way too early to make the call. Is this going to be long lasting, or is this just the Britney Spears one hit wonder? So let's wait and see what happens. But I do think, again, good signs so far. We got to make sure that they can continue the longevity of this. And I think that, one thing I asked my kids is, hey, is this going to cause you to spend less time on Snap, Instagram, TikTok, and ultimately the Xbox, which is Microsoft? And they said, no, the Xbox, experience is completely different. So I don't think what you're seeing right now is it taking away from other experiences. Certainly it did in the short term, but we'll see if they can actually tap into time spent on these other platforms. But I do think it is an entry point to the Metaverse. I think it is no doubt a great opportunity for them. Again, it's just really not going to really drive the needle on financials.
And Brent, you mentioned Xbox, so I want to get to Microsoft and your opinions about the stock price because I'm looking at a 5-year chart on the Wi-Fi Interactive. That is from the lower left to the upper right. Not many drawdowns, and they're up 436% over the last 5 years. And in fact, over the last 3 years, we've seen 2 of those years with gains of more than 50%. But you think maybe the good times are not going to be as good next year, or this year, I could say.
I've been a long-term bull of Microsoft, was a Microsoft developer earlier in my career. So I've been around the ecosystem for 20 years. This is a great company. There's nothing wrong. The challenge right now is they just can't repeat another 20% growth year, right? So I think investors have to brace for growth is going to come down. We're going to see a deceleration. The comps get harder every single quarter. So I think you're going to see for Microsoft an ongoing great, story with high recurring visible revenue, a phenomenal management team. And as we've said, as long as Amy is CFO and Nadella is in the CEO role, there's not much to worry about. It's going to be a very stable ride. But I do believe expectations are just still too high for what they can continue to do. We're going to be facing a giant COVID hangover this year, right? The world's going to reopen. Digital investments are going to continue, but they're not going to continue at the pace we saw in the last year and a half. It can't happen. So you're just not going to see, them coming off a 22% growth quarter. It might be the best growth quarter they've ever had. That's not going to continue. That being said, the growth will still be very good. The results will be fantastic. It's a very balanced portfolio, but again, I just think the expectations for what they can do again are probably too high.
Yeah. Well, and if your expectations for a COVID hangover play out this year, we're only on, by my count, on day 4 of January. So good luck to all of us here. Got to leave it there. Brent Thill, Jefferies Equity Research Analyst. Always good to speak with you.